Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game.
I'm a headliner.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today, where we head into week 17, which is, yes, championship week here for fantasy football for so many people. Now, if you play your championship in week 18, it's going to be rough next week. I'll tell you that you got to change those rules next year. You got to find a new league, whatever it is. Don't play fantasy football in week 18. But if you do have to play next week, don't worry, we'll have some videos to help get you through the entire season. Now, before we head into all the matchups, all the running backs here in week 17, and who we should be playing, a couple quick notes here. First thing, got to give a shout out, RIP John Madden, right? John Madden has been a part of a lot of people's upbringing here over the last 20 to 25 years, not only for being an NFL coach, but his video game has actually done a lot to teach a lot of up-and-coming, football players, football enthusiasts, a little bit about the game. The guy's been a huge part of so many here for so long, he's going to be missed. Secondly, the new COVID protocols in the NFL changed from a 10-day quarantine down to a 5-day quarantine. Going to mean some players may be available that we originally think would not be. That's definitely something to pay attention to. And lastly, we know the fantasy season is just about over, right? We just talked about that, which means not a lot of people are going to be watching fantasy football videos or NFL videos come January through June to July, right? Which pretty much means me, Kyle, the Doc, and even Tater are going to be working for peanuts around here because not a lot of views are going to be coming into the channel here over the next few months. If we've helped you at all, if we've entertained you at all, if you've enjoyed yourself here this season, consider hitting the join button just below this video. It's only $4.99 a month. You get some cool emojis, some bonus content to help give you that leg up on your competition as we head into 2022. We would greatly appreciate that support, but now is the time where we head in to week 17. But before we do that, how did we do in week 16? And honestly, I'm pretty pleased with how week 16 turned out. Out of the 56 running backs we gave a start or sit designation to, 42 of them were correct for an accuracy percentage of 75%. Got a lot of comments last week with a lot of people saying, hey, you helped me get into the finals. That's what it's all about. Some of the bigger misses we had was Rex Burkhead, Rashad Penny, Darrell Henderson, huge letdown. Some of the bigger hits, Damian Harris, Devin Singletary, and Chase Edmonds came through for a lot of people last week as well. But now let's move over to week 17. And for week 17, championship week for so many people, you got to start your studs. You don't want to get cute here in week 17. I would rather lose with my best players in my lineup than lose by benching one of my best players and having him go the hell off on my bench. That is not a good feeling and not something you want to live with for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 months. It's just something that'll eat you up. You start your studs here this week. But I also tell everybody that this is a good opportunity for you to find teams. If you have decisions to make on your rosters, find the teams that are playing for something. If they've already been eliminated or they've already clinched playoff spots, this is that time of the year where we could see some rested starters. We could see some teams not playing for a whole lot, so they're giving other players opportunities. That's where you have to be careful. Try to find the teams that are playing for something because you know they have to go out there and give it their all on Sunday. And that's where you get those potential boom games, right? You may still have some studs get some solid games if they've clinched a playoff spot like Davante Adams. We're not going to bench Davante Adams this week just because the Packers have clinched. However, he may not have that 30, 40 point ceiling because they're not going to have to go out there and feel like they have to run up a score or whatever it is. They get up big, he could be rested. Stuff like that. So make sure if you have a decision to make that's kind of how you're looking at things. Hey, are either one of these teams playing for something? Is their playoff hopes on the line? Because those are the teams that have the opportunity for the big games here this week. Now, we have no Thursday football. We have no Saturday football, which means we're going to kick off this show with an extended thrust into Sunday football because it's championship week, baby. We're going to the Atlanta Falcons and Buffalo Bills. And Buffalo is really one of those teams that needs to keep their foot on the pedal, right? They can't take it easy. They need to stay ahead of New England, and New England plays the Jags this week, so you know Buffalo has to go out and try to put it to the Atlanta Falcons, one of those teams we're kind of looking for, right? One of those teams that has something to play for, and this is definitely one of those opportunities that, damn it, Devin Singletary could have a chance to run all over the Atlanta Falcons. Is this dude for real in this backfield? Because all of a sudden, he just seems to be like the guy. Now, we know that Josh Allen had some sort of an ankle injury a few weeks ago, but ever since that, we've seen a ton of Devin Singletary, and we're loving it because it's 3 straight games now with at least 11 fantasy points scored. And over those last 3 weeks, He's running back 6 overall in fantasy football. Now, a matchup going up against the Falcons, they allow right around 18 fantasy points per game, 12th most in the NFL. If Buffalo can get a lead against Atlanta, which I expect, we could see more running, more Devin Singletary. He'll be a start. For Atlanta, it's still only Cordero Patterson, but now he's coming off of back-to-back duds, which is helping nobody here at the worst time of the season. Mike Davis still sucks for the most part, and the majority of the touches or looks are still going the way of Cordero Patterson up until last week. And then all of a sudden, they each had 7 carries and 1 reception against Detroit. Like, why are we all of a sudden splitting 50-50 in a backfield that Patterson has just annihilated this entire season? Now we're trying to get too cute in Atlanta, and I don't understand why. We need Cordero Patterson here this week. Luckily, Buffalo has allowed over 135 yards rushing in 5 of their last 6 games played. Hoping for a little bit more pass work as well if they fall behind and need Cordero Patterson to find the end zone and get you that touchdown. He's still going to remain a start here for Week 17. Fingers crossed. Now we head out to Chicago for the Giants and Bears, and at this point, I feel like we just need to pour one out for Saquon Barkley, right? I mean, has the dude just completely lost it? Because it doesn't look like he's 100% healthy on the field. Last week, 15 carries for 32 yards and only 1 target. And once again, couldn't keep him on the field, only played in 34% of the snaps. If this guy could maybe stay on the field, he'd have that opportunity, more opportunities, to bust off the big one. But as of right now, he's busting off nothing but little ones, and we ain't about that little one life over here. He hasn't played in 60% of his snaps since week 13 and has only 1 touchdown now since October 4th. Let that sink in. It's almost the new year, y'all. He's only had 1 touchdown since October 4th. This is a decent matchup for him, though, going up against Chicago. They allow right around 18 fantasy points per game, but there is no safety here anymore with Saquon Barkley. Devontae Booker, Elijah Penny, they're all getting touches in this backfield as well, but can you really afford to sit Saquon Barkley? Honestly, I have him listed as a start, but when my rankings come out, dude's going to be close down to like the 25-ish range. And he doesn't have that safety. He's more of a flex play, which is absolutely crazy to say. However, that ceiling is still there if he can get himself a big game. We've seen more involvement in the passing work up until last week. If he can get that, he'll still give you that safe floor, and that's why I'm going to have him as a start. Like I said, he's going to be lower in my rankings for Chicago. We need that late season magic to continue from one David Montgomery. We need him to just push us through the fantasy championship for one more week. He's had 4 straight games now with at least 10 fantasy points and had at least 5 receptions in 4 straight games as well. The Giants allow over 20 fantasy points per game. Great matchup for David Montgomery. Firing up Monty here once again. We need him to bring us home a championship in week 17. Now we head out to Cincinnati for the Chiefs and the Bengals, and I guess we're back to Darrell Williams in Kansas City here once again. CEH listed as week to week with a shoulder injury, so really waiting to get more information on when we may see him again. Now remember, Darrell Williams filled in for CEH just a few weeks ago, and over that span, weeks 6 through 11, Darrell Williams was running back 8 overall and half PPR scoring. Cincinnati is no pushover, though, on defense, and they're playing for something right now. Cincinnati is definitely one of those teams that needs to continue to win. Cincinnati was right around 16 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, and they just shut down the Baltimore run game last week. Now, Derek Gore, he's going to get some touches as well, but Darrell Williams will be option 1 in this offense, and his involvement in the passing game could lead to that safer floor. That's why I have him listed as a start this week, as long as CEH does sit for sure. For Cincinnati, we are in full go mode, right? I'm talking about they have their foot firmly on the pedal. They don't care about running up scores. Joe Burrow going to go out there and try to throw for 500 again. Joe Mixon playing great football. We already know that Joe Mixon is a stud here this year. He's running back 3 overall on the season. Kansas City allows over 17 fantasy points per game. We saw Joe Mixon run a wheel route at the end of last week's game just to put Joe Burrow over 500 yards passing. The guy is healthy. He's scoring touchdowns. The entire offense is booming right now. We're gonna use a saying here, and I'm sure you've used this in your life before. We're gonna kiss it. We're gonna keep it simple, stupid, and start Joe Mixon. Which takes us up to Tennessee for the Titans and the Dolphins, and 2 more teams that are really playing for something, right? Both are top 7 in the NFL against opposing running backs, though, allowing right around 16 fantasy points per game each. Both have backfields that make you want to go because they're not overly exciting. Both have backfields that utilize 3 running backs almost every single week. There's nothing safe at all about this matchup. This could definitely turn into a defensive ugly battle here this week in Tennessee. Honestly, I can't start any of these guys with any kind of confidence here this week in championship week. If I had to choose one for each team, I would go with Donta Foreman for Tennessee, and I would go with Duke Johnson for Miami. The Miami one is the huge X factor because now all of a sudden Philip Lindsay is a lot more involved. We know about Myles Gaskin still being there. Does Salvin Ahmed get any touches here this week? There's just a lot more question marks surrounding Miami, and that's a difficult matchup for them going up against Tennessee. Trying to avoid that one altogether if possible. If you need somebody in Tennessee, though, Donta Foreman's still the guy leading the backfield in touches. He's finding the end zone, which is great. He's just losing efficiency with those touches. Not the easiest of matchup for him either. So honestly, prefer to sit everybody here in this matchup. But like I said, if you need one, it's Foreman and Duke for me here this week. Over to Indy now for the Colts and the Raiders. And this is what we've all been waiting for, right? Jonathan Taylor against the Raiders defense in championship week. Hell yeah, that's what if that doesn't give you straight chub, I don't know what will. We need a big week out of Jonathan Taylor, right? Because we don't know about Carson Wentz as of yet. Now, originally he was going to be ruled out. Now the change in the COVID protocols, depending on when he tested positive, which we do not know at the time of this recording, technically he could clear in time to play this weekend. Definitely something to pay close attention to. If it's not Carson Wentz, we could be looking at Sam Ehlinger in his first ever start. Woof. Like, that's not exactly what I'm looking forward to, but if that does happen, even more reliancy on one Jonathan Taylor. The Raiders allow over 21 fantasy points per game, 8th most in the NFL. You already know that you start Jonathan Taylor. Now, all of a sudden, what about Nyheim Hines? If Carson Wentz sits and Sam Ehlinger is the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts, all of a sudden I think Nyheim Hines gains a lot of value, right? More checkdowns potentially, not, putting too much on the plate of the rookie here, giving him that opportunity to go short to intermediate routes there with Nyheim Hines at times. I think it boosts his value. Is it enough for me to want to go out there and start Nyheim Hines? Not really. He's only had one game with over 20 snaps in the last 2 months. As of right now, just give me the safe bet in Jonathan Taylor. For Las Vegas, Josh Jacobs, we know, is the man in Las Vegas, right? He's coming off a season high in carries with 27 and yards with 129. The Colts are very tough against running backs, though, allowing only 15.5 fantasy points per game. That's 6th best in the NFL, but I love the volume. You definitely need touchdowns with Josh Jacobs because the efficiency isn't going to be there for majority of the time just due to that offensive line not being the greatest and opening up huge holes for him. You can't sit somebody who has 30-plus touch potential in championship week. We need a big game out of Josh Jacobs. We need him to find the end zone, but he's going to be a start here in Week 17. Which takes us out to New England for the Jags and the Patriots, and RIP J-Rob. Dude finally got past Urban Meyer, made it through, and now he's suffered a torn Achilles and done for the year. Hate to see that. So now where do we go in Jacksonville? Do we go to Dare Ogunbowale? Sure, he did good last week. Guy actually came in and performed. That was against the Jets, and the Jets are like the worst defense in the NFL against opposing running backs, so I don't know if I want to put too much into that. You want to put in the fact that they're playing against the New England Patriots in New England, and New England has something to play for? No. I'm going to sit Dare Ogunbowale here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. For New England, like I've said all along, Damien Harris is the guy in this backfield. I still haven't heard back from the guy a couple weeks ago that said Ramondre Stevenson was Derrick Henry light. I haven't heard from that guy in weeks. It's kind of weird. But Harris has at least one touchdown now in 8 out of his last 9 games played. Now, sure, there will be other running backs in this backfield that get touches from time to time. However, Damien Harris is the lead back, and he's performing well in New England. He's going to get the touches in a matchup going up against Jacksonville, in which I expect New England to have a lead. We could see a whole lot of Damien Harris, and he's going to be a start. And speaking of the Jets, let's look at the New York Jets, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Rojo to the rescue here to end out 2021 with a matchup against the Jets. Perfect timing. I will definitely take that. Rojo coming off a game in which he had 22 touches, a top 12 finish in fantasy football, and Tampa Bay is still banged up on offense. They need Ronald Jones to perform here this week against the Jets, who allow over 27 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, most in the NFL. I just mentioned Dare Ogunbowale ran all over these guys last week. We could see a whole lot of Ronald Jones this week. Now, a lot of people ask questions. What about Keyshawn Vaughn? Okay, you look at the box score Dude didn't have a bad game, but he had one huge play. You take away one big play and the guy was basically irrelevant, and we can't count on those big plays every single week. So I'm going Rojo for the win and going to start him here this week. As for the Jets, we know we only consider Michael Carter in this backfield. He's the only running back in this backfield that is worth a damn, but now the Jets are starting to play a little bit better football. Their pass weapons still healing, could get back Elijah Moore this week, which could hurt some of the upside of Michael Carter, but not too much. They need help anywhere in the passing game. If it hurts anybody, it could be Braxton Berrios. This is definitely just one of those matchups, though, that's not ideal. It's a lot easier to throw on Tampa Bay than it is to run on Tampa Bay. They allow only 14.5 fantasy points per game, which is third best in the NFL. I'm still going to start Michael Carter. He's going to be a little bit lower down the rankings, but let me ask you this. If you put Michael Carter in as your flex and he goes out and scores 12 or 13 points, are you happy with that? In a week like this, depending on your options, I will take that, and that's why I'm starting him once again this week. Now we head out to Washington for the football team and Philadelphia Eagles, and no Miles Sanders once again for the Philadelphia Eagles. A broken hand, so now it's back to the show that is the backfield of the Philadelphia Eagles. You got Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell. Do we see Jordan Howard? Suffered a stinger last week, still kind of unclear whether or not he plays this week or not. If he doesn't, that could clear up a little bit of things here for Boston Scott at least, but it's just another one of those backfields that has no safety here in a week in which we need some safe floors with some high upside. It could literally be anyone in this backfield to go out there and get you that touchdown. Plus, you add in the fact that Jalen Hurts could call his own number on the goal line, and it just really limits the touchdown upside for any of these guys. I prefer to sit them all, but like I said, if Jordan Howard does sit, if he does not go in this ball game, all of a sudden Boston Scott will climb a few spots in my rankings and could be considered a flex start if needed. As for Washington, we kind of lucked out last week with the Antonio Gibson touchdown, if I'm being completely honest, because Dallas just took him to the woodshed last week, and they really had no opportunity to run in Washington much last week. Now, Philly, pretty decent against the run themselves, allowing right around 16 fantasy points per game, but this guy's going to continue to get volume. Will Antonio Gibson, he's definitely somebody that we have to start here in week 17. The ceiling is too high. We know that Washington's going to want to go out there and try to finish the season strong, and the touchdown upside is just something we can't ignore. We're going to start Antonio Gibson once again. Over to Baltimore, though, for the Ravens and the Rams. And, well, we didn't get to see a whole lot of Darrell Henderson last week before his injury, but it's because they weren't using him. That injury came later in the ball game. The dude only had one carry for 17 yards. But the bigger question here is Cam Akers an Avenger? Because how is this dude even potentially playing this coming up week? He just tore his Achilles 6 months ago. That's an injury that most people take at least right around 12 months to recover from. And at the running back position to be back in 6 months, that is absolutely mind-blowing to me. Now, if he does play, they can't give him too many touches, right? Why rush him back in a short time frame anyway, and then give him a full workload, especially when Sony Michel is playing pretty well? He has to lead that backfield in touches, right? We have to continue to give the ball to Sony, and Baltimore allows right around 17 fantasy points per game. Don't get me wrong. I love Cam Akers, but this week, in his first week back, until we see what kind of volume he's going to get, I'm going to roll with Sony here once again. For Baltimore, though, Devonta Freeman is still the guy in this backfield. Now, since he absolutely crushed these guys last week, and they couldn't run the ball very much, the touchdown upside still lies with Devonta Freeman, and the Rams allow right around 17 fantasy points per game. Baltimore needs to continue to win ball games. We don't know exactly who's going to start at quarterback for them this week, but Devonta Freeman has had a pretty safe floor over the last 6 weeks or so. I'm going to continue to start him, just keep him a little bit lower in my rankings because I don't think that ceiling, that super high ceiling, is going to be there this week, but he could hover right around that 10-point mark if you're looking for a flex play here this week. But now we fly all the way to the West Coast for the Chargers and the Broncos, and back comes Austin Ekeler, activated off the COVID list. Thank you, Lord. We absolutely need him here this week. He just faced off against Denver in Week 12, had 18 fantasy points. I will take 18 fantasy points here this week as well. No matter the matchup, it doesn't really matter. We're always starting Austin Ekeler 100%. That's not a question. Now, for Denver, WTF happened to Melvin Gordon last week? That's the biggest question. 7 carries for -4 yards. Like, how do you do that? Like, how does that happen? I think I could take 7 carries in the NFL and at least get no yards. Like, I think I could at least, hit the 0 mark, but whatever. A tough week for Melvin Gordon. Javonte Williams didn't do much either himself. 7 carries for 12 yards. Only thing that really saved him was a touchdown, right? That's what gave him that safer floor. A matchup going up against the Chargers is pretty good, though. They allow over 24 fantasy points per game, and this is a perfect time for both these guys to bounce back. Now, I've said it ever since they've both been active. If they're both on the field, they're both going to find themselves right in that 20 range or so because they're more of a flex play here because we know the split in touches is going to happen. Obviously, if one of these guys doesn't play, they catapult up the rankings. But with both of them active in a matchup like this in which they could both see some decent volume, they're both going to be starts. They're both going to be flex plays with lower ceilings. Now we drive up the coast for a few hours to San Francisco for the Texans and the 49ers, and I know some of you out there may want to start Rex Burkhead after his performance just last week, but he did that last week against the Chargers. The Chargers defense we just talked about like a minute ago, you remember? The second worst team in the NFL against opposing running backs. San Francisco is a lot better against the run. They allow only 15 fantasy points per game, fifth fewest in the NFL, and San Francisco has something to play for. They're out there trying to win the ball game. I'm not tempting fate here. I'm definitely going to sit Rex Burkhead. For San Francisco, it sounds like we could get back Elijah Mitchell here this week. But are they without Jimmy Garoppolo under center? Does Trey Lance start this ball game? In my opinion, as of right now, they're trending towards starting Trey Lance here in his second NFL start. Now, we've seen with Elijah Mitchell in the past, when he's healthy, he gets the volume. And in a matchup going up against Houston that allows over 22 fantasy points per game, I will start Elijah Mitchell if he's active. If he does not play in this ballgame, if he is inactive, then I will go to Jeff Wilson Jr. here once again and expect him to get some decent volume and give us a safe floor in Week 17. Now we head up to Dallas for the Cowboys and the Arizona Cardinals, and the Cardinals have just completely fallen apart here as of late. They've lost 3 straight ball games. Now their offense just looks out of sync, but they have clinched a playoff spot. So because of that, it will not surprise me if they, proceed with caution with the likes of James Conner and maybe not run him out there and give him any additional work. They can ride Chase Edmonds here once again, let Conner get healthy here over the next week or so, and then they can try to make a run in the playoffs with a healthier backfield. This is just not one of those ideal situations. I know James Conner has been great for so long. I would have to admit that if I had to look back at everything right now, maybe my best call of the year would have James Conner being a sleeper in our draft guide. Seeing a lot of people go out there and get James Conner because the guy really produced. It sucks that he got hurt here end of season, but I do expect them to kind of be a little bit cautious with him here until the playoffs. So I will fire up and start Chase Edmonds here this week. For Dallas, they have clinched as well, right? They're celebrating in Dallas last week, so this is not an ideal situation for them either. Could we see some second half rest if this game gets kind of out of hand again? Honestly, I don't think it's enough of a worry for me to want to sit Ezekiel Elliott. He's still going to be a start. He could still get heavy volume, and he typically does pretty good against the Arizona Cardinals. Pollard, in my opinion, though, he's still not 100% healthy. Why are they going to continue to push him, get him good to go for the playoffs as well? He may not see the volume, may not get enough touches. He may be big play dependent, making him a little bit less safe. So I'm going to sit Tony Pollard here this week and continue to roll out Zeke Elliott. Now I go to New Orleans for the Saints and the Panthers, and this may be a matchup of 2 of the worst NFL offenses that I've seen in a while, right? I mean, New Orleans is banged up, dealing with COVID issues. Carolina can't figure out who they want to play at quarterback, which is a huge concern. New Orleans is one of the best run defenses in the NFL, so there's no way I'm going to start anybody in Carolina because there's no consistency in that backfield, whether it's Chuba Hubbard, Cam Newton, Amir Abdullah. I can't tempt that, but for New Orleans, how can you really sit Alvin Kamara? You can't. This dude can absolutely go off in the drop of a hat. Don't you remember last fantasy season when the guy went out and scored like 6 touchdowns to end the year and won so many people championships? Carolina allows over 18 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. You got to run what you brung, right? We talked about starting our studs. Alvin Kamara is one of those studs, and he's going to remain a start. Now we head back across the country up to Seattle for the Seahawks and Lions, and you got 2 teams here playing for not a damn thing. Draft pick position, I guess. I mean, does Detroit bring back DeAndre Swift? That's maybe the biggest question in this match. I mean, why would they do that? What would that accomplish at this point of the season? They've been pretty safe with him here up until now. So why would they risk it here when it really doesn't matter? That's something we're waiting to find out, right? If DeAndre Swift is active and starting, I'll throw him in my fantasy lineup. If he's not, then I'm just avoiding this backfield altogether. Whereas whether it's Jamal Williams or Craig Reynolds, are they all going to split touches? Seattle does allow over 27 fantasy points per game. It's a great matchup for the Detroit Lions, but in my opinion, it's Swift or nada here for me. And the same can kind of be said for the Seattle Seahawks, right? A ton of options here in this backfield as well. You got Rashad Penny, DJ Dallas. Do we see Travis Homer, Does Alex Collins come back? Adrian Peterson's still floating out there somewhere. Now, Penny, in my opinion, should be the guy in this backfield. He is the best option for the Seattle Seahawks. It's just not a safe start by any means. Detroit does allow over 22 fantasy points per game, though, which is 6th most in the NFL. In my opinion, Rashad Penny provides you the safest floor with the highest upside in this backfield. He's not going to be super high in my rankings, but if you need to start somebody for Seattle, Penny's the guy. Out to Green Bay now, though, for the Packers and the Vikings, and we should have Dalvin Cook back, right? Thumbs up for that. I'd love to have him back for championship week. In Minnesota, they need to continue to win ball games too, right? They're kind of in the hunt for the playoffs. Now, Green Bay, they've already clinched, but this is Dalvin Cook. You never sit Dalvin Cook when he's healthy. For Green Bay, don't be surprised if we start to see even more A.J. Dillon here over the next couple weeks. Now, there's no way you sit Aaron Jones. He's one of your studs. You start your studs in the finals here of fantasy football. But don't be surprised, like I said, if A.J. Dillon gets a little bit more volume, especially later in games. If games get out of hand early, we'll see a lot more A.J. Dillon just to make sure Aaron Jones is rested and ready to go. Now, Minnesota allows right around 19 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. So honestly, I think both of these guys can be starts. Aaron Jones is going to be higher in the rankings. A.J. Dillon more of a flex option in a matchup in which, like I said, I could see him getting some boosted touches just to keep Aaron Jones fresh. The great thing about Aaron Jones, though, is he doesn't need 20, 25 touches to give you a great fantasy day. He's highly efficient. If he can go out there and get you 15, he can finish you in the top 12 there at the position and give you a great day. So that's why we're going to continue to start both these guys here this week. Which means we finish off the week in Pittsburgh with the Steelers and Browns, which is my Manscaped matchup of the week. Don't forget, even though Christmas has passed, it is still not too late to head over to manscaped.com and get yourself something nice, fellas. Use the promo code Headliners. I'm going to give you 20% off and free shipping if you use that promo code at checkout. So make sure you head over there, find yourself something nice. My entire bathroom is stocked with Manscaped stuff. It looks like I have a hoarding problem, but you definitely need to go check it out. Tons of great products over there for whatever it is that you need. Now, back to this matchup. It's a must-win for both teams here to have any chance at the playoffs, right? They need to continue to win ball games, and we know we never sit our studs here with Nick Chubb or Najee Harris. Regardless of past performances, we need our big-name guys to produce. These are two of the biggest name running backs in the NFL here this year. They're both going to be starts. So the biggest question mark here is if Kareem Hunt plays. Now, he's not practicing at the time of this recording, and honestly, I'm not expecting much from him this week, even if he does play. In my opinion, I would be surprised if he's out there here this week. They've had Nick Chubb, they have Dearness Johnson, which is more than capable enough of a backfield to go out there and produce here this week against the Steelers. In my opinion, right now, the only two guys I'm tempting it with is Chubb and Najee. All right, those are my starts and sits for the running back position here, Week 17 fantasy football. Hopefully, like I said, we're able to give you the information you need to go out there and make some great choices and bring home some championship trophies. Now, if you scroll through our videos from this week and last week, you can see tons and tons of comments of everybody saying, hey, made it to the championship, made it to the playoffs all because of you guys. Don't forget, we're here as a resource. You all are setting your lineups. You're making the championship runs. Give yourself a pat on the back. We're just glad to be a part of it with you. So hopefully you guys are looking forward to another week of fantasy football here. Only one more week after this in the regular season. And then what are we going to be doing after? What are we going to do after the season's over? I mean, I'm sure the playoffs will carry us, to the beginning of February, but man, looking forward to some great off-season content, so do not unsubscribe. Even though the season may be over, we will blow your mind with the information that we will provide to you January through July. So stick around, looking forward to all that off-season content and looking forward to hearing all the stories from you guys down below in the comment section of bringing home those championship trophies. So hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, a great week, and we'll talk to you later.